Episode 3, Chapter 2, A Man That Works the Sea. Chapter 2, There Ain't No Future for a Man That Works the Sea. In the Temple of Fiends, once more, 4 clouds of darkness converged, concealing the forms of those terrible beyond belief within them. It was a long time before any of them spoke, but eventually, one ended the silence.
The Chaos Knight is dead,
Tiamat hissed, as she glared at the corpse that still lay on the floor between them all. After a moment, Kraken sighed.
Stating the obvious. How tedious. Yes, Garland is dead. We knew it would happen eventually. That is the way of things. Everyone before him died eventually. We all knew he would do so as well. He wasn't so bad, I guess.
Carrie shrugged.
Strong, in his time, as always. But he was old and weak now. Any of us could have killed him with a moment's thought. This changes nothing in the long run. The next will come eventually, and the cycle will continue.
She glanced at the 4th.
Lich, take care of the body. Very well.
Lich moved forward and lifted the body. This long after its death, the blood had all long since drained out, although not even the most rabid ghoul in the temple had dared touch it. Carrying it to the altar in the back, Lich placed the armored corpse onto the black orb and arranged it in repose, then stepped back. The orb seemed to almost sigh, and the faintest glimmer of light appeared in it, a glimmer that expanded, then contracted. A similar sigh came from the armor, and the ancient body contained within seemed to melt, collapsing into dust.
It is done, then,
Tiamat stated.
We 4 are alone once more, until the coming of the next Chaos Knight. However, my concern over Garland's death was not over the matter of the death itself so much as the manner of it. How it occurred. To be specific, who his slayers were. Again with the Light Warriors.
Kraken growled.
I don't see why you're concerning yourself so with them, Tiamat. So they killed an old man with only a trace of the power he once held. Even if he was who he was, that proves little. I don't see any reason to get bent out of shape over this. For all we know, it could have been luck. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet it was. I'm with Kraken on this one.
Carrie shook her head.
You sound like you want us to do something personally about this, Tiamat. Do you know how much effort it would take to reach that far to where they are now?
She shuddered.
I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep for weeks after a disturbance like that. You're lazy,
Tiamat told her bluntly.
And you're overconfident, Kraken. We shouldn't allow even the slightest possibility of a threat to gain power. That prophecy came from somewhere, after all. We all sensed it when it came, so we know it wasn't just made up. These Light Warriors are a threat. So then send some underling to do it.
Kraken groaned.
Have them wring those idiots' necks and be done with it.
He sighed.
But if it'll make you happy, I'll increase the number of Sahaghin I send up to the surface. That should make the going on the seas a fatal proposition should those fools try it.
He glanced at the 4th fiend, and a cruel smirk twisted his features.
What about you, Lich? Any comments to make on this matter? No.
Lich replied quickly.
Nothing.
Tiamat rolled her eyes in despair.
Very well. Enough of this.
Drifting apart, 2 of the fiends left the temple once more, but the other 2 remained. Once they were gone, Tiamat coughed.
Speak. What do you wish to say? I think you may be correct,
Lich admitted.
I did not wish to speak against them, but you are the wisest of us all, Lady Tiamat. If you wish, I will convey such beliefs to my master. and he may decide to take action.
Tiamat nodded.
That would be appreciated. Make it so, Lich.
Turning, they left as well. After they had departed, the black orb pulsed again, and the now empty armor disappeared into it, like sinking into water. Above it, the bats of the temple were silent, watching as always but making no noise. The trip back to Corneria had been uneventful enough. Even after they had departed, the monsters of the Temple of Fiends had apparently been too scared to mount a pursuit. Moreover, word seemed to have spread to even the imps and maddened beasts beyond the temple's area. Not a single one showed its face while the four warriors and the princess made their trek back. As they came in sight of the city, a troop of Cornerian soldiers poured out to meet them.
Princess Sarah, I'm glad to see these brave warriors were successful.
The commander kneeled before her.
Rise, Sir Leon.
Sarah instructed him with gravity for only a moment before smirking.
You know I hate the formalities. Stop that right now. As you command.
Sir Leon stood and smiled as well.
It's good to see you alive, princess. And good to see you didn't die, brother.
He grinned at Luke.
Made any impressive kills? I hope you didn't drag these guys down too much. I got Garland. Not by myself, so I suppose it'd be more accurate to say we got him. But that's still about as impressive a kill as they come.
Luke replied, smirking slightly.
Ha ha. Keep it up and you might be a real knight someday after all.
Leon nodded at the other three.
You would be Drake, Mary, and Vlad, I expect. We didn't get a chance to meet before. I'm this meathead's older brother. He didn't mess things up for you, I hope. He was fairly useful during the escapades.
Drake confirmed.
We all have varied skills, but none of the rest of us can quite match him in the mass times acceleration department. Couldn't have done it without him.
Mary agreed as well. Vlad simply grunted affirmatively.
Well, good.
Leon turned back the princess.
Your family have already been notified? They're waiting for you. Shall we return to the castle?
Sarah winced.
A couple hours of tedious formalities followed by the biggest chewing out of my life, I'm guessing.
She glanced at the other light warriors.
I don't suppose I could convince you to get started right away and take me with you. I think they'll be happy just to see you back on one piece.
Luke chuckled.
Your mom was so broken up, she locked herself in the royal bedroom. Although she actually forgot to lock the door. But still.
Despite herself, Sarah giggled.
That's Mom, all right. Okay, let's go.
Walking through the town, the light warriors raised eyebrows as the people of Corneria began cheering wildly.
Your family's a popular monarchy, I see.
Mary noted. Sarah nodded.
Yeah. Embarrassing, isn't it?
Drake, however, was grinning like a buffoon and waving.
Thank you, thank you. All in a day's work for the light warriors. That's right, we're the heroes. Idiot.
Vlad muttered, but he did so quietly enough that Drake didn't hear. As they approached the castle, two women ran out. One was in her 40s, the other slightly younger than Sarah. Both wore tiaras.
Sarah. Oh, thank the gods.
The older woman, apparently her mother, embraced her. The other one just smiled and wiped her eyes.
Sister. We told you that you would get in trouble if you kept sneaking out of the castle like that.
Releasing her mother, Sarah turned on her.
Maybe next time Garland'll kidnap you if you keep that up, sis. What?
The other prince's eyes widened.
He's not dead.
Luke picked up on that immediately.
Oh, he's dead enough. But then, so were all his servants.
The knight in training shrugged.
Who knows when he might get back up, sew his head back on and try again out.
Luke rubbed his head and glared at his older brother, who had just clonked him one on the noggin.
That's enough. Let's go see the king.
Leon frowned.
I'm surprised he didn't come down here as well.
The queen smiled and shook her head.
When he heard the news, he began jumping around so much that he threw out his back. He's upstairs in the throne room.
Sarah rolled her eyes.
And this is the family that's in charge of an entire kingdom? All right. Up we go.
They followed the same path through the castle as before, and when they entered the throne room, the king was beaming like a sunrise. Sarah gravely crossed to the throne, then dropped her formality and hugged him.
Sarah. My princess.
The king whispered, then released her.
Ahem. I see that you were triumphant, warriors. May I assume that the Chaos Knight is no longer a threat to our kingdom? Unless he can make himself into an undead, which he showed no signs of doing when we left, your majesty.
Luke kneeled before him.
How would you command me now, my liege? Rise, Luke.
The king commanded him.
You and your comrades have taken your first steps here to an eminence far beyond mine. Beyond any mortals. Your journey as the Light Warriors has begun. It is I who must ask you. What shall your next actions be?
Luke stood and turned to the others.
Well, guys. What are you asking us for? You're the one who fits the role of fearless leader best out of all of us.
Drake joked, then sobered up.
Well, seriously. We're a long way from being able to take on the fiends, but we might want to start moving that way regardless. Get stronger as we go, sort of thing. I think it might be a good idea to get back in touch with the guys who got us into this mess. You mean the Circle of Sages?
Mary inquired, referring to the 12 old men who had first dreamed the prophecy which had inspired them all. Drake nodded.
Yup. They convened at Crescent Lake, or so I heard. It might be a good idea to head there. Isn't Crescent Lake all the way across the Aldi Sea?
Luke pointed out.
Well. Yeah.
The elf admitted, looking slightly sheepish.
It was just a thought. If we had a ship. I don't suppose either of the ones that brought us all here remain. I'm afraid they've already departed.
The king shook his head.
And no others remain here. Although the land of Provoca, to the east, may be a different story. Their capital is one of the world's largest seaports, second only to Onrak in the north. Even in these dark times, there are sure to be ships for hire there. I think one of those would definitely be preferable to hiking overland around the sea.
Mary noted.
Provoca to the east, then.
She glanced around at the other three, who all nodded in agreement. After a moment, Luke winced.
I forgot. That bridge to the north over the Temple River is still down, isn't it? Garland's bunch wrecked it about a week before kidnapping the princess. I've had workmen repairing it.
The king informed him.
I'll just ask them to step it up a bit. If they do, it should be finished by tomorrow. Will you be departing tomorrow, then?
Sarah asked, a strange tone in her voice.
Yeah. I think we had better. We've got a long trip ahead of us, after all.
Luke replied, sounding reluctant.
We'll rest up today, then head off tomorrow, I guess.
The king clapped his hands, and one of the assorted nobles in the throne room stepped forward, bearing a wallet.
Hopefully, this will aid your journey. I'm afraid it's not as much as I'd like. The royal budget was rather tight this year. But please use it nonetheless. And
he smiled.
For rescuing my daughter. The bridge that is being reconstructed now shall also be renamed, in your honor. The Bridge of the Light. Your names will be etched in the four corners of it to stand, hopefully, for all eternity. Your Majesty is too kind.
Drake bowed deeply, glancing at Vlad and shaking his head slightly just as the black mage was about to reply scathingly about not needing such things.
We'll allow you some family privacy then. By your leave.
The light warriors bowed once more, then turned and left. After closing the door, the elf looked sidelong at Luke.
You going to be okay, man? Why wouldn't I be?
Luke shrugged.
We're just going to do our job. Or try, anyways. I knew this would be coming someday. I just didn't think it would come so soon. We know.
Mary placed a hand on his shoulder.
But we have to cope with it. It's all we can do. That, and hope for the best. Yeah.
Luke agreed.
All right. Shall we head back to the inn, then?
Drake grinned.
Now you're talking.
Despite their victory, however, Luke remained in a somewhat subdued state through the evening. None of Drake's jokes or Mary's reassurances could bring a smile to his face for more than a moment.
Just leave him alone,
Vlad advised his sister and the elf quietly after Drake's latest pratfall involving a banana peel and a conveniently placed mug of ale had only brought a light chuckle from the knight in training.
Nobody can smile all of the time. Let him have this evening before we go. Who is that and what is he doing?
The black mage glared irritably at a young man with blue hair who had approached Luke.
Excuse me, sir. Are you the light warriors? That'd be us.
Luke turned to him.
Something we can help you with.
The man started to speak, then broke off as the other three joined them, Drake and Vlad looking rather unfriendly at the intrusion.
No, never mind, it's... Go ahead.
Mary pressed him.
It's okay. What is it? Well,
The man looked down.
To be honest, I want to ask you for help. You're the only hope I have. I've tried getting in to see the royal family, but the guards said it'd be weeks before I'd get an audience. They have been rather busy lately.
Luke murmured.
Well, what's your story then? I'm from Provoca.
The man blurted out.
To the east. I'm from the capital. To be short. The city's under attack.
Drake frowned.
So? Provoca has an army, right? A navy, actually. And they're away at sea right now. That's why the enemy attacked. They knew the city was nearly defenseless. Until the navy returns, the city's at their mercy. And who knows how long that will be. Sounds like you've got a problem, all right.
Luke admitted.
But this is your lucky day. We were planning on going to Provoca anyways, so we might just be able to take care of your problem for you. Thank the gods.
The man looked skyward.
So who are these enemies?
Drake inquired.
Monsters? No. Pirates.
The Provocan man explained.
And not just any crew of scum. It's Bicky the pirate's crew. He's wanted in practically every country in the entire world. I haven't heard of him, but then Gaia isn't much for the ocean,
Mary admitted, and Vlad nodded as well. Drake frowned.
Bicky, I think I've seen some wanted posters with his name on them around back home. I've heard of him too. He's got quite the reputation, all right.
Luke sighed.
Still, if he's occupying Provoca, it looks like we'll have to deal with him. We leave tomorrow, bud. We'll see what we can do about the problem. Thank you.
The man bowed.
I'll leave you alone, then. The gods bless you all.
He retreated, and Drake sighed.
Another bozo who needs a beat down. Well, at least we learned about it early instead of finding it out the hard way when we got there. I'll drink to that.
Mary agreed.
I'll pass. It's getting late. I'm turning in.
Vlad decided, departing. Drake sighed.
Spoil sport. But I suppose he's got a point. We do want to leave bright and early. True.
Mary glanced at Luke.
Coming. Go ahead. I'll be up later.
Luke waved at them. Shrugging, they followed Vlad up, leaving the knight in training alone at the bar. After about an hour, he stood and paid his tab, then walked out into the darkened streets, headed towards the castle. A telltale clank from an alley caught his eye, but before the man creeping out of it could make his move, another pulled him back, and there was a frenzied whisper of explanation followed by quick footsteps in the opposite direction. Smirking, Luke continued on his way. The guards at the palace let him in without a word, and he continued along the empty hallways until he emerged on the rooftops. Another was already there, wearing a fresh dress of the same red that she had worn when they had rescued her. She was sitting in a chair, absently strumming a lute without any real tune in mind.
I was wondering how long it would be before you came.
Princess Sarah greeted him without turning around. Luke joined her and looked out over the city below for several moments before replying. This late, the only light visible aside from an occasional window came from the torches on the corners of important streets and the moving flames of night watchmen.
I was kind of putting it off.
The knight in training admitted at last.
Not sure why. There was no way I wasn't coming. Just not thinking, I guess. I thought we agreed you were going to work on that.
Sarah smiled before falling silent again. Neither of them were really sure how to start the topic they were both thinking about. Finally, the princess sighed and spoke again.
So you're leaving tomorrow, going out into the world? We knew it would happen eventually. Ever since the orb reacted to me.
Luke reminded her.
When was that again? 10 years ago.
Sarah thought back.
Right after your brother made captain. And we didn't know it then. Didn't really comprehend it. It wasn't until 2 years later that we figured out we wouldn't be together forever. I remember now. It was right before I started my training in the guard.
The fighter nodded.
You were still a crybaby back then. Ran off and wouldn't see me again for a week. I did not.
Sarah protested.
Half a week, maybe. I thought it meant you were going to abandon me or something. After 7 years with you as the only one who had talked to me like a person instead of a princess. Somebody who would help me sneak out of the castle. Who would teach me to use a sword instead of a knitting needle. Who offered to accidentally wreck my tiara if I hated it so much.
Her voice trailed off, as did the lute, as she set it aside.
And now it's been 15 years. And the time's come.
Luke picked it up, but didn't play it, he simply looked down at it, remembering how often he had heard her fingers on its strings.
More than anything in the world, I want to take you with us on our journey, but you can't.
Sarah shook her head.
Because despite everything we both said, everything we believed, I'm still a princess more than anything else.
No, Luke denied fervently.
More than anything else. You're Sarah. That's all. That's what I believe. And that's who I'll come back to after this is settled. Not a princess. Just Sarah. I will come back. Believe in that. You had better, you great clumsy fool.
Sarah wiped her eyes, then kissed him. After a long moment, they came apart, and Luke smiled again.
Still a crybaby? Shut up.
She smiled as well.
Don't die, Luke. Win. And come back to me. The others. The Light Warriors. Do they know? Probably.
Luke looked away.
I'm not exactly subtle, as you've told me a lot. But they're good guys. They'll keep quiet about it. It is a bit irregular,
Sarah admitted.
In all the stories, the princess falls in love with the knight after he saves her from the monster, not before. But maybe that's why they're stories. I wonder what stories they'll tell about you. You'll have to listen for them so you can tell me when I come back.
Luke chuckled.
Are you okay now?
The princess nodded.
Yeah. I'll live. But I need to get some sleep before we set out.
Luke held the lute out to her, but she shook her head.
Take it with you. Think of me when you see it. And bring it back to me.
Luke slowly nodded, realizing there would be no arguing with her on this.
I will.
He turned and started to leave.
Just remember. You promised.
Sarah whispered as he departed.
You promised to come back. Don't you dare break that. Well, goodbye Cornelia.
Drake waved at the city as the 4 light warriors walked out of the gates.
It was nice knowing you, but destiny calls and all that.
He glanced at Luke, who seemed to have shaken off most of the melancholia that had gripped him the previous evening.
You okay now, big guy? I'll be fine.
Luke looked to the north.
Looks like the bridge is up, though I can't see too clearly from here. Sun should be up soon. You got back awfully late.
Vlad noted.
Are you sure you won't give out today? I'll manage. I can handle it for one night.
The knight in training grinned at his black mage friend.
You're the one who should be worrying most about it. I don't think you've slept more than 3 hours a night since you came here that I know about. I'm used to it.
Vlad shrugged. Behind them, Mary smiled and leaned over to Drake.
Looks like they're getting along. Good. Luke's the kind of guy who makes friends easily.
Drake noted.
Vlad, though, is just the opposite.
Mary admitted.
Always has been. It looks like he's trying to get to know Luke, though. He only does that when he's genuinely interested in someone. It's a good sign. He shouldn't have too much trouble with that.
The elf laughed.
Luke's about as complicated as a brick. He's nice and simple to understand. Same with me, I guess. Maybe that's why we hit it off. I don't know.
Mary gave him a sidelong glance.
I think you're more complicated than you let on. What's the word? Sneaky. I'm not sure whether to feel complimented or insulted.
Drake wondered.
You're not exactly simple yourself, Miss Mary. Mages rarely are.
She shrugged.
Hazard of the profession.
She looked at the horizon as the first few touches of light began to peek over its edge.
Here comes the sunrise. And we're about to the bridge. I'd say that's a good sign. Hey, Carter.
Luke greeted the apparent chief of the workmen who were sprawled near the edifice.
Finished? Yet? About time. We busted our asses all night to get this thing up for you by now.
Carter grumbled.
Still, if anybody deserves it, it's you. Oh, just so you know, when you get back from saving the world and all that, the king wants you to model for statues to be put on the corners. I'll make sure to accidentally be somewhere else at the appointed time.
Drake commented.
Like, say, Gaia. There's respectful, and then there's ostentatious. For once I agree with you.
Vlad growled.
Well, it looks sturdy enough at any rate. Yeah.
Luke stepped onto the smooth white stone, looking up as the sun rose into the sky, coloring it with every shade imaginable.
This is it, guys. We're heading off for real now. Any regrets? Plenty, but I can live with them.
Drake laughed, glancing over his shoulder.
And if we die horribly, at least we tried, right? I'm sure we'll be fine.
Mary glanced over the side of the bridge at the rushing river below.
There's no point in being fatalistic. Let's all hope for the best. Yeah. Just keep walking.
Vlad pulled his hat further down over his eyes.
Our ship isn't going to come to us.
After that, they all fell silent, simply listening to the birdsong of the morning and enjoying the play of hues upon the air above as they continued across the bridge that had been named for them. Eventually, though, they reached the other side, and the spell ended.
So, are there significant differences in the wildlife over here?
Mary inquired of their de facto leader. Luke nodded.
Yeah. The imps, wolves, and horses are still around, though. And I think Garland had a few traces of his forces hanging out on this side, though I don't know what they'll be up to now that he's dead. More importantly, though, is a nasty critter called an iguana. Looks like some kind of purple lizard bug hybrid, the size of a horse. We'll have to watch out for those. Venomous snakes, too. Asps?
Drake asked grimly, and the knight in training nodded.
We've got those in Elfland. What about ogres and creep? They're not too common up here, but occasionally there'll be a sighting.
Luke admitted.
Hopefully we'll be able to make it to Provoca without any encounters with those.
The elf shook his head.
Hope so. Believe me, you'll see enough of 'em when we get to my turf to last a lifetime. They're thick as flies on a garbage heap down there. Matter of fact, a creep looks a lot like a garbage heap, to be honest. If the pictures in the textbooks are at all accurate, you're being kind to them.
Mary made a face.
Proof that even evolution screws the hell up sometimes.
Vlad agreed. Fortunately, their hopes were vindicated on their first few days at least, though they had encounters with the wildlife already accustomed to as well as 2 tussles with the bizarre iguanas. The group managed to avoid anything worse. Monster-wise, anyways. It was near sunset of the second day when they emerged from a thick forest to find themselves staring at a solitary mountain on a peninsula, with nothing beyond but the open ocean.
Well,
Luke observed after a few moments of slack-jawed silence.
That sure isn't Provoca. Amazing deduction.
Drake sighed bitterly.
I knew we should have gotten a map. Where the heck are we? There's a cave over there.
Mary pointed out.
Ogres. Could be,
Drake muttered.
We should stay away just in case.
He trailed off as someone, or, more accurately, something, emerged from the cave mouth. It was a broom, and it seemed to be moving quite purposefully under its own power, dancing this way and that without a care in the world or any sort of explainable propulsion.
It's enchanted,
Mary realized.
Got to be.
Luke snapped his fingers.
I know. There's supposed to be a witch named Matoya who lives way up in the north. Supposedly south from here along the coast is on a straight line to a tiny desert that's on the border between Corneria and Provoca. Somehow we kept going north when we should have turned east. And here we are. A witch, huh?
Drake watched the broom.
Hostile. Just the opposite, actually. She's known to help out travelers who get lost around here. Up until recently, anyways. Nobody's seen her for a while now.
Luke scratched his head.
Bro was just about ready to send some guys up here to check on her.
Drake sighed at that.
So we're going to be the elf scouts and check in on the nice old lady now. Look at it this way.
Mary smiled a bit deviously.
She might let us sleep in there. Save some tent money. Well, when you put it that way.
Drake answered with exaggerated sarcasm, then laughed.
Into the witch's den we go, then.
As they approached, the broom turned its top towards them, and then somehow, it spoke.
Imaklulo. Srolivart Sol Woyira. What? Slot something.
Luke blinked like he had just been poleaxed.
It's talking backwards.
Vlad explained.
It asked if we were lost travelers. Oh. Yes.
Luke nodded at the broom a bit uncertainly.
I'm from the Cornerian Guard. These are my friends. We meant to head to Provoca, but...
He spread his hands helplessly.
And I am Ok, Alyo.
The broom moved back into the cave.
Wolof. Surtsum et nilit si retina.
With Vlad translating, they followed the broom inside. The cave was surprisingly pleasant and well lit, a long hall with several doors on both sides. Taking them to one, the broom knocked it open to reveal a large study, shelves crammed with various magical paraphernalia. Sitting behind a round desk and sipping from a mug that appeared to be made out of an imp's skull was an old woman in a modest purple dress and a red hat much like Vlad's. Her face was surprisingly kind, although her eyes were strange. Somehow unfocused.
Ah! The travelers.
She squinted at them, smiling.
Welcome to the home of Matoya. There are 4 of you. Ah. Yes ma'am.
Luke agreed.
My name's Luke. These 3 are Drake, Mary, and Vlad. Nice to meet you. You would be the one from the guard, then?
She guessed.
Your friends are an elf and 2 mages, I sense. Forgive me for not being able to tell much else. My vision is very bad, I'm afraid.
She glanced at the air above Luke's head.
If you return to Corneria, please ask the other guardsmen if anybody's found a crystal ball. I was able to use it focus my powers and enhance my vision, but it's been missing for about 3 months. We're heading to Provoca, actually, Lady Matoya, but we'll check there, and if we do return to Corneria, we'll ask them as well.
Drake assured her.
And in any other kingdoms we travel to as well. If we find such a thing, we'll be happy to return it to you.
Matoya smiled a bit cynically.
You're a silver-tongued one, Mr. Drake. I'd better keep an eye on my possessions while you're here. Still, I'll offer you the hospitality of my cave for the night.
Mary smiled warmly.
Thank you, Lady Matoya. If we may ask one more thing. Might you have an extra map of the area around that we could borrow? Your words are more heartfelt than clever, Mr. Drake, young lady.
Matoya indicated a shelf.
Unfortunately, all I have are magical maps. They won't be much help in showing you the way to Provoca, I think, but you may feel free to take one anyways. I have plenty.
Drake plucked a scroll from the indicated shelf and unrolled it, then blinked.
Pardon me, Lady Matoya, but this seems to be blank. I already told you, it's magical.
The witch reprimanded him.
To bring it up, you have to say the incantation. TCELESB.
Drake looked back at the map.
Oh, there it goes. Huh? It's showing Corneria, and our path up here. And Elfland too, down south. But that's it. It looks big enough to be a world map, but most of it's blank. Let me see.
Luke took it.
Huh. I see Corneria in this place, sure, but where's Elfland? It's right.
Huh? Drake frowned.
It was there a second ago. Additional enchantments.
Vlad grunted, taking it.
At a guess, it can only show places where the holder has been. See, now Gaia's showing up on it.
Drake scratched his head.
I see why you said they wouldn't show the way to Provoca, madam. Thank you anyways, though. This should still be useful. They turn off after an hour.
Matoya informed them.
Just say the incantation again to bring the map back up.
Luke frowned.
That might take some doing. Husup is bad enough. I don't even want to try to say Tessils. You should be able to manage B, at least.
Drake joked. Mary shook her head.
TCELESB sup. Not too bad. Me or Vlad can do it at any time. How did you do that?
The knight in training stared at her as if she had just sprouted gills. Mary smiled a bit ruefully.
Practice.
She admitted.
Magical speech is tricky, but we've been working on it for a long time. Enough.
Matoya pronounced, seeming to lose interest in them. Picking up a book, she began reading it.
The broom will show you to your rooms.
Obediently, the animated cleaning instrument danced out of the room, and after a moment, they followed it.
Bit curt, but nicer than most witches, I'll bet.
Drake shrugged, scanning the map further.
Actually, from what of the coastline is on here, I'll bet I can tell where we made our wrong turn. Problem is, it was an entire day ago. Of course.
Vlad shrugged.
Be glad it wasn't too. Yeah. Well, we should turn in.
Luke shrugged as the broom opened a door to a spare bedroom.
I'll take this one, then. Night, all. Finally. There's Provoca.
Luke noted, catching first sight of the city a week after they had met Matoya. Wiping his sword off on the corpse of the iguana he had just slain, he glanced at his three friends.
How you guys doing? We're good.
Drake raised an eyebrow.
Why? Remember, we'll have this Bicky guy to deal with there.
Luke replied.
Chances are we'll want to get that out of the way as soon as possible. We've got no idea what the city's like with those guys occupying it. Be careful. Right.
Vlad grunted.
Same drill as usual, then? You two go in front, I'll blast when necessary, and Mary keeps us alive. Go with what works.
The knight in training shrugged.
Should be less than an hour away. Let's get to it.
Like Corneria, Provoca City was surrounded by a protective wall, although it was neither as tall nor as thick as Corneria's. The front of it opened out onto the sea, with a massive, miles-long wharf extending into the bay. And totally unoccupied, save for one large vessel, flying the Skull and Crossbones. It was an aged, weathered ship but still in good condition. The paint on its side named it the Amphitrite.
Where are all the ships?
Drake wondered.
That one's got to be Bicky's. Where are the others? Gone, youngster.
A middle-aged man with a blue mohawk was sitting on a dock, idly fishing.
Bicky and his goons made 'em all run, and sank those that wouldn't. Said that it was so he wouldn't collide with any others while at anchor at least one time.
He spat into the water, then cocked an eyebrow at them.
If ye already know about Bicky, I gotta wonder why you wanted to come here. Going into the city's a bad idea with the pirates running the joint. I'd advise staying away until the Navy comes back and removes his fool head for him. The maniac's gone too far this time. We're here to take care of that for you, actually.
Luke explained.
Another fella from here came to Corneria looking for help. He found it.
The man stared, then chuckled.
Sure, fella. Tell me another one. What, are you the advance scouts for the Cornerian army or something? Army's not coming. No need for them.
Drake grinned.
Ever hear of the Light Warriors?
The man started to laugh again, then trailed off.
You're really them? Huh?
He shrugged.
Well, heck with it. Nothing to stop you from trying, I guess. Last I heard, he was in the Viking's Head. Or what's left of it, anyways. It's a bar in the northwest section of town. Got it.
Mary nodded, taking out her hammer.
Don't worry, sir. We're professionals.
The man's eyes widened slightly upon seeing it.
So I see. Good luck. Right.
Luke turned and led them through the gates, wincing at their condition. Something had apparently tore them halfway off, causing them to lean at useless angles.
That'll take some time to fix up.
The city beyond was in surprisingly better condition, although here and there a part of a building was smashed and broken, and there was none of the hustle and bustle that marked most cities at this time of the day. Provoca's people were staying inside, almost certainly out of fear.
Right, there's the Viking's Head.
Drake growled as they saw a wrecked tavern sporting the name on a sign over its door. Mary winced at the off-key singing and laughter pouring from the interior.
I'd think we could have found them even without knowing the name.
The Light Warriors walked in to find chaos and disarray. 10 burly ruffians were drinking, gambling, swearing and laughing with each other, unconcerned about the state of the establishment. The apparent leader was a stout, swarthy man with a dense black beard and an eye patch, clad in stained blue silks and tarnished gold jewelry, the image of barbaric splendor. A black captain's hat atop his head completed the image that and the mug he was draining at the moment. Finishing it, he laughed, long and wild.
Har 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 har. That's the ticket, all right. Now, where'd that lobster go?
The pirate glanced blearily around before groping around the floor and coming up with a half-eaten shellfish.
Knew it was around. If I didn't know better, I'd think the damn thing was still moving.
He bit off its head and glared at it.
There. How about that then, laddo? Think ye can run off now, huh? Huh. That's what I thought.
He threw it to the ground and stomped on it repeatedly.
That's the way, boss.
Another pirate laughed. Like the others aside from Bicky, he was wearing green-dyed leathers and a horned helmet.
Show that oversized bug who's the boss. Who's the boss? That's right.
The captain grinned.
You boys all know who the boss is, eh? Bicky the pirate.
The others all howled in unison.
That's right, har har.
Bicky turned to the cringing bartender, who had been trying to shrink into a corner.
Oi, Larry. Get me another mug of whatever that was, it was better than the usual swill. And another lobster too, for that matter, and don't take too long bout it less you want me to get bored and entertain myself with the decor again.
The bartender shivered and glanced at a particularly large hole in the wall.
Right away, Mr. Bicky, sir.
He scrambled off, and Bicky sighed theatrically.
No guts, any of 'em. Landlubbers her all the same. Wish a few'd put up a decent fight once in a while. If it's a fight you want, we're the ones you're looking for,
Luke announced loudly. Instantly, all eyes in the room turned to them.
Hey, who are you?
One cutthroat sneered.
3 weird guys. And a gal.
He whistled.
Pretty fine looking one at that. You here to show us a good time, sweetheart?
The others all snickered and hooted.
Depends on what your idea of a good time is,
Mary replied coolly, displaying her hammer.
I've heard some guys are into pain. Ho! You're a cold one, lass.
Bicky grinned approvingly.
So you want to brawl, huh? You don't look like natives.
His eye narrowed.
I can't place you and the kid in the straw hat, missy. But your mateys look to be from Elfland and Corn area. What are you doing here? Call it a good deed.
Luke shrugged.
It's what we do. We're called the Light Warriors. Ring any bells? Not a one, har har.
Bicky replied cheerfully.
Not that it matters. We're up for a fight any time. What are the terms then, or is it just to the death? That's always so boring, don't you think?
Drake smirked, leaning against the bar.
How about this? If we win, those of you who are still kicking clear out of this city nice and easy. And without your ship. It's the Amphitrite, right? We need one, and it looks like yours is the only one around, so we're gonna have to ask you to put it up.
The pirates began muttering angrily at this, but their captain just laughed again.
Fair enough, boyos.
He agreed once he was done.
But then, if we win.
His eyes narrowed, and his grin widened.
You're all ours for slave labor. Especially you, lassie. We'll have all kinds of uses for you.
Vlad began to chant, but Mary held a hand up.
Stick to the plan, bro. I've heard worse. Your terms are acceptable, Mr. Bicky. 10 versus 4, then. Nah, I'm more in the mood for watching right now, to be honest.
The captain admitted.
I've had too much to drink. You boys think you're up to it? We'll take care of this, Captain.
One of the other pirates grinned, all of them drawing cutlasses. Bicky nodded.
Right then. On the mark. Err. Get 'em, mates.
Howling, the pirates charged. Luke and Drake prepared to meet them, then blinked as Vlad stepped between them, chanting.
This is worth a shot.
The black mage released a green haze from his hands that spread over the pirates. 3 of them reacted fast enough to avoid it, but the rest were caught, breathing it in.
Poison?
Drake asked sharply, but Vlad shook his head.
No. Sleeping gas, gah.
The 3 remaining pirates had rushed the 3 men, and the one in the center had scored across Vlad's chest. Grunting, the black mage fell back, pulling his dagger, and the pirate just grinned.
What do you think you're gonna do with that frog sticker?
His voice cut off as Mary's hammer slammed into the top of his head, smashing it into the floor. Luke had dispatched his with equal ease, parrying a few blows before locking the man's blade like Garland had done to him. This time, though, he immediately followed with a punch to the face that left the pirate on the floor. Drake, seeing this, immediately followed suit with his own opponent, then glanced at the 6 remaining, who were all sleeping soundly yet remaining upright on their feet.
We should disable them, I guess. Whoa!
He yelped as one of them began to stir.
They're waking up. Excuse me for not being perfect yet.
Vlad growled, setting the pirate on fire as his sister healed his wound. Yelling, the man ran out, but the heat and noise had awakened 3 more.
Let us take these.
Drake yelled at Mary.
That was a good shot, but these guys aren't bad, so don't risk it again, Kay. Watch out!
The white mage yelled in reply. Drake snorted as the enemy's cutlass scraped his arm.
I have got to stop doing that.
He stabbed the man in the hand, then knocked him out to silence his howls. Luke grunted irritably as the other 2 opened up cuts across his torso.
Got to hurry this up before the others come to.
He stepped back, and one of the pirates advanced, swinging wildly. It wasn't long before Luke saw an opening, and he drew back again before releasing a massive upward slash that more than returned his wound as well as knocking the pirate back onto his companion. A kick in the head once he was down did for him as well, and the knight in training turned to the remaining 2. Before he and Drake could advance, Vlad and Mary were there, striking with hammer and dagger hilt between the eyes, making the sleep's duration much longer.
Even we can usually manage to hit sleeping guys.
Mary joked, and Drake chuckled.
Well put.
He turned to Bicky.
Well, Captain? Or, as of our wager, should I say ex-captain? What do you think?
Bicky shook his head, he had watched the fight in silence.
I'll say this for you, you sure know what you're doing. All of you.
He stood, grinning dangerously again, a strange light in his eye.
My boys were no match for you, that much is certain. I guess I'll have to handle this myself after all.
He slowly drew his own sword and held it low.
Know what they say about wanting something done right.
All 4 light warriors stood around him, waiting for his move. Finally, he raised the blade, then sighed and chucked it aside.
Ah, hell with it. Okay, you got me. I can't take you all together. Shoulda joined in from the start. Looks like you've won today, whoever you are. We'll get out of town, then. End.
He winced.
And me ship is yours. I knew I'd had too much to drink. If I agreed to that bet, I deserve to retire. Looks like me seafaring days are at an end. Luck of the draw.
Drake replied sympathetically before turning to his friends.
Well, looks like things have worked out after all. We saved the day again, and got a ship of our own to boot. Wonderful.
Luke agreed.
One thing, though. Do you know how to sail a ship like that? No.
Drake's grin faded.
I kinda thought you did. We're an army in Corn area, not a navy.
The fighter reminded him.
I couldn't work a canoe, let alone a big ship like that. If you put me in charge of that thing, the only place we're going is down. Well, Damn.
Drake glanced at the mages.
Any chance? We come from a mountain town.
Vlad interrupted him.
Do you really want to demonstrate your lack of intelligence even more by asking that? A simple no would have worked.
The elf muttered.
Well, hell. So much for my clever plan. We're stuck here until the Navy comes back after all. Wait.
Bicky spoke up again, flipping up his patch to reveal a perfectly normal eye that stared at them.
Let me get this straight. You came here and beat the crap out of my boys. All for a ship that none of you can even use.
Luke stammered, then gave in.
That pretty much seems to be it, yeah.
Bicky stared at them for a moment longer before dissolving into hysterical laughter, actually falling off his stool. After several minutes of this, he climbed back up, still chuckling weakly.
You guys are a riot, har har. That's the funniest thing I've heard in 20 years on the high seas. Who did you say you were again? We're the Light Warriors.
Mary repeated.
Names, lass. Names.
The pirate urged. Drake shrugged.
I'm Drake. Fearless leader is Luke. Those two are Mary and Vlad. Try and guess which is which. So you're the boss.
Bicky turned to Luke.
Well then, today's your lucky day, Mr. Luke. Or should I say, Captain?
With a flourish, he swept his hat off and plunked it onto the startled fighter's head.
I like you folks entirely too much, so your purchase of a ship comes complete with crew, me lucky buccos. I was getting bored of the pirate game anyways, and what good's a ship ya can't use, eh? Helmsman Bicky, at your service. Don't worry, we won't be no more bother, ya got me word on that.
He began rousing his crew with kicks and curses.
Oi, you louts! Get up and salute your new captain and mates. We're good guys now, law-abiding and all that shite. At least I think we are.
He turned to the Light Warriors again.
Ya are good guys, right? Yeah, more or less.
Drake shrugged, adapting easily.
We're out to kill the fiends. Doubt we'll actually do it, but hey, gotta try.
Bicky whistled.
You don't say. You've got nerve, all right.
He laughed again.
I'm gonna enjoy this, mateys. I never owed that bastard Kraken or any of the rest nothing know how anyways. Where are we headed and when do we leave?
Luke thought for a moment, scratching his head.
Crescent Lake. And tomorrow morning, I guess. Might as well rest here today. You got it.
Bicky turned to regard the bartender, who had just returned.
Oi, Larry. These 4 brave buccos have just run us out of town. We're leaving tomorrow and the city's saved. Now aren't you grateful? Get your heroes some of the good stuff, ah.
The bartender nodded frantically and scurried off again.
Are we seriously going to do this?
Vlad muttered to Luke.
Do I really need to tell you how untrustworthy these louts are? It's either this or wait for more ships to come back, and that could be months for all we know.
Luke whispered back.
Don't worry. I'm not that stupid. We'll all sleep on deck, and always keep a watch. Just like for monsters. If they try something, we'll be ready for it. Good.
The black mage nodded.
Mary knows how to check our food and drink for anything they might slip in it, so we should be able to make this work as long as we all stay on our guards. Right.
Luke sighed, watching Bicky dance around.
Well, at least it won't be boring.
End of chapter.